people thought I was crazy. My husband would even say, like, well, if we did this, like, he never took it serious. But in my mind, like, I was doing this. This was happening.
Welcome to the Run Lift Mom podcast, where we're talking about running, lifting, and momming, not necessarily in that order. I am so excited to introduce to you today's guest, Ashley St. Germain, who is the only known woman to skate, that's right, to rollerblade across Canada. You guys, Ashley did this in 2012. She is now a mom, and when I heard that this was her background, I had to get her to reflect on why she decided to skate across Canada, what it was like from a physical and logistics perspective, as well as what she thinks about the effort, thinking back to it 8 years later. This took her 5 months to do. This is incredible and amazing. Without further ado, Ashley St. Germain. All right, welcome Ashley St. Germain to the Run Lift Mom podcast. How are you doing tonight?
I am awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Girl, I am jazzed to have you. I'm kind of going to make you go back in time, so time machine style. We're going to talk about something that you did back in 2012 today.
I actually rollerbladed across Canada.
You rollerbladed across Canada. Oh, awesome.
I know, it's something I say lightly, but it definitely wasn't a light task. So that's just over 6,000 miles for all the Americans listening. This is actually my very first American interview for Skate, which is pretty cool considering it's 8 years later.
So let's start at the beginning. Why in the world did you decide to do this?
I have the short version and the long version. So the very short version is I did it to raise awareness for youth mental health. The long version is I was living in a basement apartment with my husband, well, then fiance. My brother was living with us going to college. I was working a minimum wage retail job, and I was in the mindset of like, I should have life figured out by now. Like everyone else seems to have life figured out, and I'm kind of just stuck. So I was very negative and kind of bitter person. And it was that exact night, February 26th, that my brother was watching a hockey game because we're Canadian. We're big hockey players and watchers. And so he's watching a hockey game, and they were honoring one of the coaches in the NHL. His daughter had just passed away of suicide at 14. And I opened my mouth and said something I regret to this day, which was, why the heck are we honoring someone who took their own life? Why are we not raising money and talking about people fighting for their lives with cancer and, with other diseases? But instead, here we are basically honoring someone who wanted to die. Again, I don't feel that way now, but I definitely did in the moment. And it wasn't 45 minutes later that I left from my own hockey game, and I was getting ready in the dressing room like normal. And I got a text message that said Rachel had died. And I quickly got on the phone because Rachel was a friend of mine who I grew up with right from kindergarten all the way through high school. And it didn't make any sense to me. And not just because she had died, but because Rachel was exactly the person I wanted to be. She was a Team Canada rugby player. She went to university. She was a scholar. She had the most amazing parents. She had the life. So I couldn't wrap my head around why she would take her life. Like, that didn't make any sense to me. As kids, we ran a marathon together, and I was so proud of myself because I came in 87th, which was like huge in our county. And Rachel came in 3rd. So you can see how she was like the runner. There was no way I was going to run across Canada. That was definitely out. I don't think I'm built for that. So I thought, you know what, skating. Hockey felt really tied in because I'd found out at hockey. And that's where the whole idea came to be.
Wow. Well, and it's a big way to make a statement and to raise awareness. Tell us, so, okay, skating made sense because you're a hockey player. How did you prepare for it? So when you said, okay, I'm going to do this big thing, did you do it like the next week? Did you prepare for months? What did the training look like?
The whole thing took a year, and it definitely wasn't easy. I had no idea what I was doing. Not a clue. I kind of just took things in stride, like literally. This was before Instagram. This was before Facebook Live. This was really like no one had really done this. I did not know what to do. I had no blueprint. So I just started reaching out for sponsors. Kind of that was my like go-to is like if I can get a sponsor, then it's game on. And I must have reached out to 3,000 or 4,000 companies over the year, and I didn't get hardly any responses. I got really good at hearing no. People thought I was crazy. My husband would even say like, well, if we did this, like he never took it serious. But in my mind, like I was doing this. This was happening.
I'm sure logistically it got a little hairy, right? So talk to us about where you started. How did you travel? I read that you went anywhere from 35 to 50 miles a day. What did it look like from a logistical perspective?
Well, at very first, our hardest thing in preparation, I'd say, was getting a vehicle. We didn't have anything until about 5 days before we left. And when we were able to get like a Ford dealership to sponsor us by renting just a regular van. And we basically converted that into our makeshift like sleeping quarters. We had like a regular mattress in the back of this van. We had a generator and a microwave, and that was pretty much it. Literally, we never knew where we were sleeping or stopping the next night. I would just skate as far as I could skate, unless we had like an event planned, and then that would be it. But yeah, my best day was actually like 6 days into the skate, and it was 100K, so 60 miles. And then we like an average, like a minimum I'd have to do would be like 40 to 50K. And that again, that would depend on where we had to hit our targets, and then, weather dependent and stuff like that. But we faced all kinds of challenges when it came to the weather. And one thing I actually never really talk about, which is kind of a big deal, is when we got to Montreal. So we were well into skating for over a month. I stopped at Rollerblade, the company, because they sponsored my rollerblades, and they actually took apart my blades and said that they were defective. And I had been skating on skates that had no bearings, that like they were improper. And so I had friction between the wheels the entire time I had skated up until that point.
Wow. So I'm assuming that they fixed them or they realigned them or something. Did it feel different?
Oh yeah, I went a lot faster.
So obviously you got a sponsor, right? The van, and then you were able to, because you were so good at making the ask and maybe hearing no, it wasn't so bad to make the ask as you continued on to do lodging and food and that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And literally my husband was a one-man band. He would take care of events. He took care of updating Facebook and Twitter. Twitter was kind of our go-to. Because again, 2012, he took care of like contacting the police if we needed a police escort in certain cities or areas. Like he did everything. When we would pull over, like morning break, I remember he would cut up an orange or two for me. He would take my skates off. He would change my socks. Like he kind of had the routine down, and he basically held up the fort on that end.
That is amazing. And I want to point out, too, that you're raising money. So this wasn't just something that you wanted to do well, you did make a big statement, but you also were raising money for Do It for Darren.
Yeah, Do It for Darren was the foundation that I was basically making fun of the night I'd found out about my friend. Darren was the daughter who had passed away. So it felt very fitting to give to that organization personally, and also because I wanted to bring more awareness to it. But the Do It for Darren Foundation is part of the Royal Ottawa Mental Hospital out here, and that hospital impacts so many people around the country. It was just such a special gift but we definitely had a hard time raising money. We did end up raising quite a bit. We ended up raising 10,000, which was great. It's like $1 a kilometer, basically. But we definitely found it hard. We had a lot of people resist the cause or not really understand why we were doing it. I had a lot of people question it, and it was really eye-opening to talk to people and really get the perspective on what mental health is and what suicide is. I actually made it all the way to British Columbia, and I was doing a radio interview, and I had someone call in and say, could you actually stop saying committed suicide? We actually prefer died by suicide, because committed is obviously committing a crime type of, yeah. So I actually now try to only say died by suicide. So there's still a long way to go, a lot of awareness to be raised. But on the flip side, I heard a lot of very touching stories. I mean, I'm sure everyone listening has a story of their own, of someone who's been affected by a mental health issue, whether big or small. And I really think it needs to be more at the forefront. We need to talk about it more. We need to make it more acceptable. I actually had a man, my very first person who pulled over and gave me $20 was in his maybe 50s or 60s. And he said, my dad died by suicide. And that's the first time I've ever said that out loud.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's just one of the many, many stories that we heard.
Wow. So I've got to imagine speaking with people like that, meeting people like that, doing this very, very big thing for Rachel. Did you feel changed at the end of it? And I don't mean physically from skating all those miles.
Yeah, it changed everything. And I mean, in more ways than one. Obviously, there's doing a big, ginormous physical thing that no one thinks you can accomplish and doing it. That changes things. But then also, yeah, there's that aspect of hearing all these people and what they're going through and their stories. And, you know, like I was talking to people who'd lost their children, and, you know, they're telling me what an inspiration I am. And I'm looking at them like, I don't understand what you've been through. Like that's a bigger deal to me. This is nothing. You know, this skating is nothing compared to losing your child.
Wow. And that just lets us know that you're the right person to bring awareness to something like this. I know there's somebody out there listening, and first of all, they're really inspired. Second of all, their jaws are still on the ground about doing an effort like that. So how long did this take you, Ashley?
It took 134 days.
Wow.
It could have taken shorter had we not had like stops and stuff like that, because we did have events. But I'm pretty proud of the fact that I did it in 134 days.
Oh, I think it's fantastic. You know, we've talked about on this show before the concept of BHAGs, or big, hairy, audacious goals. And this is
Yeah.
for sure a BHAG. What might you say to somebody who is considering a BHAG to raise awareness about a cause that they feel passionately about?
Well, honestly, regardless if you're going to do it for a cause or just I think every single human being needs a big goal, something that they think is impossible, because when you do accomplish it, doesn't matter how hard it was to accomplish or if it goes the way you wanted it to go when you finish it, it changes you, and it transforms you, right? I'm sure you know, after completing 100 miles in 25 hours, it changes you to a degree, and it almost gives you a little bit of like, I need to do that again. Like it not the exact same thing, but you know, having a big goal really can shape who you are. And like, we have one life, right? We need to live it to the fullest. And there's no feeling like accomplishing something you really didn't think you could accomplish.
Girl, amen, sister. You know, sometimes we'll tell people the way that you know you have the right big, hairy, audacious goal is like if it makes you a little bit queasy, like sick to your stomach style. If you're a little bit afraid of it, then you know it is big enough. And you're right, it definitely changes you.
Yeah, it has to be something really big. And something where you don't know how you're going to get from point A to point B. Like, I don't even mean skating. I mean, literally, like, I have this goal that, my husband and I are currently working on, and I have no idea how we're going to achieve it. But I know once we do, we'll just look back and say, okay, well, that's how we did it. Like, there's not one way to do everything. There's always going to be, things that happen, including a pandemic, that you're just going to have to figure it out from there. And like, it may change, it may shift. The timeline may look different, but they're so great to have. They're life changing. And, they literally, doing this skate, I wouldn't have my business. I wouldn't have my children. I don't even know where I would be if I didn't do that skate.
I think it's phenomenal. And if I'm hearing you correctly, Ashley, the fact that you set and accomplished a big goal in the past, it sounds like it made it, I don't want to say easier, but it made you more like eager or hungry to set another big goal.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. And also just having so many people doubt you and then proving not just to them, but like to yourself that you could do something so out there. It's undescribable. I mean, I had nobody on this planet believe that I could finish even while I was doing it, even while I was halfway through it, or even 3/4 of the way through it. Like, I had family members saying, okay, like, you're good now, you can stop. Like, there was no one who believed really that I would go all the way across, including my sponsors who wanted me to, one of them actually wanted me to prove that I could do this by doing like a shorter one first before, they would sponsor me. And I just had to really believe in myself and dig in that, you know what, I'm going to finish because I want to do it for me, because you guys don't think I can do it. It's almost like a little chip on your shoulder. You just kind of need to have that. I think it's more fun that way.
I know there's somebody listening that is not necessarily going to go across Canada. They're not going to take 4 months to do some physical effort. But guys, hear her story parallel maybe something you're considering right now. Maybe you want to be a runner and you want to do a marathon, but your family members are saying some of the same things that Ashley heard. Get that chip on your shoulder. Have somebody telling you can't do something. Let that fire you up and fuel your fire.
Legit. And you know what? My big goal right now is to do a 5K, because like I said, I'm not a runner. I was terrified of like the running aspect of it. So, that's something now that I feel completely like driven to do, even though I have never run that long. And again, 5K is not huge, but to me it is.
Yes, your BHAG. It's your BHAG, right?
That's right.
If it's a big thing to you, go for it. Are you ready to do some rapid fire?
Oh, yes. Love that.
I do want to mention, guys, that Ashley is a Zaya Active rep. I've had a couple of phenomenal women on this show that are Zaya reps. You're the first person, though, Ashley, from my own team. So, holla. We're going to do a few unrelated to skating or anything Canadian, this or that. And you can just tell me what comes to the top of your head.
Let's do it.
All right. Copper charge tank or Havana tank?
It's got to be Havana, because I haven't tried the copper charge yet, so I can't fairly judge that.
Havana Unana. All right. You are putting on a pair of leggings. Do you want brilliance or light and tights?
Light and tights all day.
I love to ask people blush pink or hot pink.
I'm going to say blush pink, because I kind of want to build a capsule wardrobe around olive, and I think blush goes well with olive.
Oh, yes. Beautiful, beautiful. And then finally, we know that Zaya's pillars are community, light, uplift, and activity. Which resonates with you the most?
I'm going to say uplift came to mind first. I really like that.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for coming on the show. You know, like running a half marathon with triplets, skating across Canada, the entire Skate for Life effort, it's just something you've got to hear about. And I don't know about you, listener, I was pumping my fist in the air as I was hearing this story. It is awesome. Ashley, you are tenacious. You are a go-getter. And it was really, really cool to hear this story. You guys, I am going to link to all of Ashley's good stuff in the show notes, depending on the player you're in. Click details, swipe up, connect with her over on High Five to Happiness. And until I get into your earpiece again, remember, for while bodily training is of some value, godliness is of value in every way, as it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. That's from 1 Timothy 4:8, and this has been the Run Lift Mom podcast. Get excited. There is a private feed of the Run Lift Mom podcast, and I want you to hear it. This is exclusively for members of my private coaching program. It includes the flexible training system as well as content only for members. If you are training for a 5K, 10K, 10 miler, 13.1, 26.2, or an ultra marathon, you gotta get over there. Go to patreon.com/runliftmom. That's Patreon, patreon.com/runliftmom, and let's get to running.
Thank you for